Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight on the ramparts we watch, words so gallantly stream, and the rockets spread the bombs bursting in, getting through to the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave on the land of and all the great.
Thank you, everybody. Be safe. All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Congressional Democratic Town Hall right here at the TN-7 in Dickson, Tennessee. My name is Zach Kinslow, and I will be the moderator here tonight. I am joined up to the side by Maria Uppelman from Houston. We will be keeping time for our candidates and handing in cards throughout the evening here. Now, before we get started, I'd like to recognize, those are the mics, there we go. Before we get started, I'd like to recognize, do we have, outside of the four on the stage, do we have any local candidates across District 7 who are joining us here today? Bill Woods, I know you're here. You got to wave at everyone. All right, there he is. Thank you, Bill. I also want to give a shout out to the members of the media who are here in the room, including those who will be live streaming, so folks across this district do not have to miss out. All right, so as we begin here, let me find our rule for this afternoon. Each candidate will be given 3 minutes to introduce themselves, to state their vision and goals for the office of D7 Congressperson. We will start in reverse alphabetical order. Remember, guys, this is not a debate, so please keep all comments directed at either myself or the audience directly. Attendees will have the opportunity to write questions on index cards to be added to the stack to be held by Maria here. You can get the index cards and then bring it to Maria once you have a question written if you would like it to be included in the stack. She will ensure questions from a variety of topics are asked. Questions, again, be directed to candidates or to individual candidates, so the group as a whole or individuals on stage. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question. I may allow for a 1 minute rebuttal if one of the candidates mentions another candidate on the stage. During the last 30 minutes of the town hall period, we will take questions directly from the audience. How we'll do that is Maria will have the mic. We will ask you to line up with her and you can ask your question. You will be given 30 seconds to ask a question. They will, again, have 2 minutes to answer. If you have a follow-up question, please go to the back of the line so we can ensure that as many people get to ask a question directly as possible. And to conclude, the candidates will be given 3 minutes to add any points not covered or to clarify points, basically your clothing. I do have flexibility to adjust these times if we run over. keep that in mind as we go through our answers. But is everybody ready?
Yeah.
All right, then let's introduce our candidates starting in reverse alphabetical order by last name. First, we have Bo Mitchell.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Well, I kind of feel a little advantage to my opponents. My wife and I, when we first got married, we lived right behind the Roxy over there. So this, we're kind of used to coming here and being here in Dickson, growing up in Charlotte. So, hey, my name is Bo Mitchell. I'm from Charlotte, Tennessee. Graduated Dickson County High School in 1988. After that, I went on to David Lipscomb University, where my senior year I worked for a gentleman named Bill Clinton. After working in that presidential race, I went to work for a state senator who represented Dickson County and 7 other rural counties, 7 of them being in this congressional district now, State Senator Pete Springer. Worked for him for almost a decade. And after that, went on to work for the Clarksville Chamber of Commerce as Government and Military Affairs Director for a few years. Bill Bredesen picked me up then and wanted me to work on his campaigns. So I worked for Governor Bredesen on and off throughout both of his administrations. After that, while working for Governor Bredesen, I ran for the Metro Council in 2007, spent 8 years on the Metro Council, and in the middle of my second term, ran for the State House. Been in the State House since 2012. My first race in the State House, I had in 2012, President Obama was running for re-election. I was on the ticket. President Obama lost my district that year in a gerrymandered district by 21 percentage points. I won my district by 1/10 of 1 percentage point that year, little over 200 votes. After that, I was the prime target for the Republicans for the next 2 cycles. So I'm used to running in tough races with the odds against me, and I look forward to this general election and turning this seat blue. Thank y'all so much.
Next up, we have Vincent Dixie.
It might be easier just to pull it out. Well, I'm looking forward to this. I don't know who thought about having alcohol at a political event, but this is going to be a lively bunch tonight. I want to kind of answer this in reverse order. People say, I think one of the goals, what do you have the goals for this seat? Mine is it's simple. Just bring some sanity and common sense back to the leadership of Congressional District 7. That's all we need to do right now. Again, my name is Representative Vincent Dixie. I'm from Chattanooga, Tennessee, actually, and then I moved to Nashville when I was 9 years old, went to public high school there, Hunters Lane, went to Tennessee State. Actually, I went to Dillard University in New Orleans, and I had so much fun, and I partied my way back to Tennessee State. So I crammed a lot of fun into it. Was a little bit more than 4 years, so we did it. So I've been married. Actually, I met my wife when we were 12 years old in the 7th grade. We never dated or anything until we got to college. And so we've been married for 26 years. I have 2 daughters. One is 20 years old. She's a junior in college. And then I have a freshman, which is Hannah Maria back there. She's going to college on Tuesday. And so I'm going to miss her. And I think it's important. That's why it's important for her to come, because I wanted to see and get younger people involved in what we're doing here, because they're our future. And we need younger people to get energized about this and to really get involved and educate themselves and mobilize and get out to vote, because they are the ones that the decisions that we make directly impact it. You know, we understand that right now life is just getting more expensive for everyone. We're paying more for food, paying more for housing, and we're paying more for healthcare. Everything, but no one in Washington is really fighting for the everyday person. And that's what I want to change. I want to fight for us, because I'm in that same boat too. I've lived paycheck to paycheck, hand to mouth, and it's not fun. It's expensive being poor. Everything costs more. So I would like to ask you to remember my name. You should never forget that name, Vincent Dixie. Dixie is a name that you can trust in the South. Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate you so much.
Next up, we have Darden Copeland.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. I'm excited that we have an opportunity to have a longer conversation. I've shared the stage with these fine folks before, but we get 3 minutes and then the music starts to play. So the opportunity to come and have a longer conversation is very much welcome. So Darden Copeland, I've lived in Nashville since 2008. Met my wife there. 2 kids later, it's home. It's our forever home. I just came from my daughter's soccer game. I signed up to coach before Mark Green stepped aside, and so I'm honoring that commitment to continue coaching. So apologize for the casual shoes here. Had an early start this morning at Tomato Festival and a few other events, so I feel bad for Afton, who has to sit next to me because I might not smell that great. But I'm a lifelong Democrat. I'm 47 years old. I've never run for office before. I've never been elected to anything but elder at my church. But I am a lifelong Democrat. And I got that way because of my upbringing through middle class. And you know, when you're growing up, you really don't know what sort of class you're in, right? You just sort of grow up, and my parents spoiled us, you know, with love. They used to say we're rich in love, and I thought that meant we were middle class. But I've benefited from the Democratic Party and the policies that the Democratic Party have laid out. My family has benefited from that. And so when I wanted to get into politics and start getting good people elected, you know, my view of it was the way you make change in Washington is you work for somebody that's a great Democrat, you get them elected to office, they go to Washington and they make those decisions for you. And I think by and large, the folks that I've worked for have done that. I've worked for working class candidates and leaders like Gephardt and Kennedy and Gore. I worked for Tim Kaine when he was the mayor of Richmond. You know, a little city council member, and they sort of self-appoint the mayor, and he wanted to run statewide. So I did his first statewide race, and one of the smartest, most brilliant, caring politicians that I know. I worked for Warner. I worked for Lieberman. Don't hold that one against me. I worked for Edwards and Kerry. And after we lost the White House in 2004, I thought, you know, can it get any worse, right? And I think now we have our answer. It has absolutely gotten worse. You know, remember we thought George W. Bush was the worst that we could do? And now look how bad it is. And so when fast forward, I built a public affairs firm. I'm sure we'll get into that, some of the work that we've done, the results I've gotten. I've won tough votes, tough elections. I've won tough projects in tough communities. And I want to take that experience of winning in this seat. I think we have a math problem here. And I think it's going to take a different kind of Democrat to win this time around. If we don't, we might have 2 Ogles representing the middle district of Tennessee if we're not careful. And so I watched the big bad bill pass, and I said, I've got to do something about it. I can complain about it and be paralyzed at home and doom scroll, or I can jump in and I can run. And so here I am. I appreciate the opportunity to let you all learn more about me. Thanks for being here.
Last here on the stage, we have Afton Bay.
All right, who's excited? This is so fun, right? Democratic politicking at its best. And I have my emotional support binder up here, like Leslie Knope. So thank you. So I'm Representative Afton Bain, and I'm running for Congress in the Tennessee's 7th Congressional District, because you all deserve better than another politician who cashes in while we're all left with crumbs. I'm not a career politician. I'm a social worker turned community organizer turned legislator, and for the last decade, I have been standing shoulder to shoulder with the movement to take Tennessee back from the extremists. From organizing the anti-Trump rallies in Nashville to standing with the Dickson County to raise awareness about their community hospital closing, I've spent every waking minute fighting for our communities. And now I'm taking that fight to Washington because we need someone who serves the people. I believe Tennessee is worth fighting for. I believe that if we organize, we can build a state that works for all of us. I come from organizing in places that most people have written off. And I've built a reputation for winning and delivering real results. In collaboration with the grassroots, and I am the grassroots candidate, I'd like to say that, I helped lead the accountability fight against former Speaker Glenn Cassida, who is now awaiting sentencing for federal corruption charges. Let's give it up. That's great. That's great. I've also passed major federal legislation to rebuild rural and small town economies. And just recently, I filed a lawsuit against the state of Tennessee to preserve your First Amendment right, and it was upheld in the conservative Sixth Circuit. So now that you know that I can win, how do we flip this seat? We have to nationalize this race and localize margins, okay? That means making sure that everyone in the country knows what is happening in Tennessee and making sure that folks across the country know that their lives are inextricably linked to ours. We have to lose less in small towns, and we need to energize the Democratic base and sporadic voters, including young people. I also want to add that out of anyone on this panel, I had the highest voter turnout of any Democratic state house representative in the entire state in 2024. So I know how to turn out urban voters, and I know how to turn out rural and small town voters. We have the opportunity of a lifetime to show that Tennessee is a place not to write on, that it's worth investing in, and that if we're worth investing in. If we win this race in deep red Tennessee, it can shock the country and send a message to anyone who has given up on politics in our state. And we can win. So let's make Tennessee the blueprint, and let's flip this damn seat.
Yeah.
Right, thank you. We'll now move on to the question and answer period of the town hall here. So, what do you see as the most pressing issue facing District 7, and how would you address it in Congress? Beginning with Vincent Dixon, you have 2 minutes.
Sorry, thank you. I think the most pressing issue right now is affordability, is what I talk about. Right now, life is really truly getting more expensive. We can't afford a lot of the daily things that we normally get just for our housing. So it's important for me that we go out there, that we raise the minimum wage, because right now people don't have a living wage right now. You just can't, right now you can't, can you hear me now in the back? Yeah, right now it's just hard for people to have a living wage to buy the basic needs that they have. Right now we're fighting over a lot of things that is not actually helping people's lives. We're fighting over potties instead of fighting over to make sure that people can afford groceries. Most people that live in Nashville can't even afford to live in Nashville. And that was seeping out into rural counties. And we have to make sure that everyone should be able to go to work, pay their bills, and have a little bit left over for savings or vacation or to do whatever. But right now, people are they're just making enough, just enough to cover their expenses. And sometimes they don't even have enough to do that. So I think that the first thing I would do is to try to make sure that the tax is rebalanced, and so that that regressive tax is not really impacting our lower income and middle class, and not give all these tax breaks to the billionaires who didn't ask for these tax breaks, and they're benefiting from the hard work and small businessmen that what we're doing and paying into the economy. Because small business are the lifeline of this economy. So thank you.
I agree with Vincent. I think affordability is a huge issue. I think, though, at this moment right now in 2025, unfortunately, Democrats in our party, we're playing defense, right? You know, the Republicans are on offense. Trump is on offense. They control the Senate. They control the House. And they're winning these votes by single digits. They're winning by 1 vote. When the big bad bill passed through the House the first time, it passed 215 to 214. 1 vote would have made that difference. When the NPR vote and public broadcast, which is now shutting down, when that passed through the House and we kicked it over, the House kicked it over to the Senate, said, hey, we're fine with it as it is, cut whatever you want. It passed by 2 votes. Unfortunately, 4 Democrats didn't show up to vote. Now, 1 evidently may have had a medical issue, but we have Democrats not showing up. And so we have an opportunity in 2025, in December the 3rd or December the 2nd, where we can actually pick up another seat. Right? When the big bad bill passed through the final time, they're winning by 2 and 3 votes. We have to pick that up, or else we're going to continue to lose more. And there are more and more rescission bills. And rescission is a fancy word for they're cutting back the stuff that they've already allocated to places like NPR. And Republicans want to do more. So they're going to keep cutting. And so, you know, they'll sell off the Smithsonian and the contents of it if they have to underwrite billionaires and more tax breaks. So right now we're playing defense. And I think the issue at hand, when you go to cast your ballot, is who can we send up there that can win this seat and hold the line on Trump until we get to the midterms? I think we win the midterms in 2026, but we've got a year where we've got to hold serve on this and continue to play defense so that we don't get more cut. That's what's facing this seat, this representative, for the next 12 months.
So I would say lowering costs and ending corporate greed in healthcare. Tennessee ranks 44th in the country for healthcare, and the Trump budget made it a lot worse. 260,000 Tennesseans stand to lose their Medicaid coverage. Almost 800,000 kids in the state of Tennessee could lose their Medicaid coverage because of this big bad bill. It jacked up rates in our ACA marketplace by almost 40%. And just recently, a guy named Stephen from Kingston Springs here, no, he emailed my legislative email and said he went in for to get his flu shot at the local drugstore, and Medicare has stopped paying for flu shots, which is wild. So for me, I believe in order to lower these costs, we've got to get corporate greed out of healthcare. And to do that, I will fight to cap insulin at $35 a month. I'm going to stop price gouging by the biggest corporations and making sure that we can waive patent monopolies to lower drug prices. Because no one in Tennessee should be suffering so that a big pharmaceutical CEO can take home a bigger paycheck while we're all struggling with our health. Thank you.
In the realm of education, what do you believe is the biggest threat to public education? Oh, I'm sorry. I crossed you off as I was reading your name. Bo.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much. You know, I think we all know what the greatest issue and the greatest risk to the 7th District is. It's the big, beautiful mess of a bill. It's a catastrophe waiting to happen. Tennessee already leads the nation in rural hospital closures. This bill will increase our lead. I've got a question for you. Have you had enough? Yes. I mean, I think it's the role of, if I'm able to become the congressman, to try to repeal that bill. Like we said, it was passed by one vote. Let's go up there and hopefully a couple of Republicans don't show up one day and we can repeal this bill. When 780,000 Tennesseans are at risk of losing SNAP benefits and food security, over 300,000 Tennesseans are going to lose their health care. And I know what it's like to be uninsured and to be that kid that can't go to the doctor when you're sick. I know what that's like, and it's not fun. So no child in the richest country in the world should have to go without health care. So, you know, we've talked about Houston County's hospital that's just reopened. Decatur County's is just reopened, but they're the crosshairs of the big, beautiful bill. You know, the amount of hospital closures that will be in this state will be overwhelming. It will be the major cities that have health care facilities, and people in towns like Dickson or in other small towns are going to have to travel an hour or more to get the health care they need. And that's not right. And that's why I'm planning on trying to repeal that bill. Thank y'all so much.
And I tell you what, I absolutely love democratic unity, even when it's aimed at correcting my mistake. In the area of education, what do you believe is the biggest threat to public education in District 7, and what will you do in Congress about it? Starting with Darden Copeland. 2 minutes.
So the Department of Education is under attack. I think the DOGE cuts, they've already cut 46% of the jobs at the DOE. And I think that we've got Republicans running on the other side of this that want to eliminate the department completely. And not only does that hurt the funding that comes into Tennessee, that's also the thing that underwrites student loans for folks that are going to college and that go to community college and four-year universities and everywhere in between. So when that starts to come under attack, as it is now, we have to stop the bleeding. We have to restore the funding at the DOE and make sure that those dollars are coming in to the state here. It was only last week, I think, that the administration released, hundreds of millions of dollars into this district that was put on hold. And so we've got folks going back to school this week and next week, or this past week and this coming week, where we didn't know if we had the funding. And that's no way for a teacher or a school board or administration to be able to govern. So we have to have a level hand in Washington, and we can't play politics with the thing that is most fundamental. Because we talk about education, and education is the great unifier. It's going to elevate folks that need it. And so if we start cutting the Department of Education, that's a slippery slope towards privatization. We've seen that in Nashville. We saw that in the legislature this year. We're giving away tax dollars to private schools. And let's not pretend that folks in Washington and Republicans and billionaires aren't thinking about the same thing. We had, I think it was one of Trump's administrative folks said, we're on a slippery slope to privatizing Social Security. They're going to do the same thing with education. So we have to stop the bleeding in the next year, and we have to protect DOE.
So many teachers in the room. Paying teachers what they deserve. Tennessee ranks 38th in the nation for teacher pay, $13,000 less than the national average. We're the second worst in the South for insurance costs, and we're dead last for retirement benefits. So if I'm elected to Congress, I plan to pass the American Teacher Act to raise the wage and restore dignity to one of the best professions we have available in this country. Thank you.
Yeah, protecting the Department of Education is a must. It's not just the regular dollars that come in. Over $1 billion comes into Tennessee from the feds for our state education funds. Most of that money is for special needs and special education classes for children. As a father of a child with an IEP, that is so important. You've got so many of these school districts across the state that if the federal law wasn't forcing them to do that, they would not give those children the opportunities that they deserve. So protecting those kids first and foremost. The student loans, I'm a product of a Pell Grant. I wouldn't have been able to afford to go to college if it wasn't for the Pell Grant program. And being able to get other grants from the federal government and the TSAC that the federal government helps fund for the state portion of the Pell Grant. So helping people have that opportunity to be able to get that education. My father worked construction for a living. The man never let me go to work with him. He said, son, you're never going to learn how to do this. You're going to college. And I thank him every day for giving me those opportunities. And we need to provide the next generation of children with those same opportunities. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, my wife is an educator. She's actually a librarian in elementary school. So I probably hear every day what we can do to fix the education system more than anything. But I think there's an opportunity. I'll tell you two things that I've done. One is I had a bill, it's called the Grow Your Own Teacher Act, that I did. What it would do is would help teachers that are already familiar, like teachers' aides, get their licenses and have to do their student teaching without having to quit their job, but they can still get their license and become teachers and make it an easier pathway for them to do that. I had a bill. They killed it before I could get back to my office. The governor made a policy. The Department of Education made a policy. You want to guess what that policy, the name of it is? Grow Your Own Teacher Act. And so they didn't even change the name. They go around and they tout it all over the country. And it's a great program. It's helping a lot of people. It's getting more teachers in the pipeline. And we do understand that pay is one that we need, but we need to make sure also. I also passed a bill was called the Science, Education, and Math Advanced Coursework Act. And what it did is allow a lot of kids that wouldn't normally have the access to the advanced coursework for the college courses and get access to that in high school. Now we've seen, this is on the 4th year, we've seen an uptick in Black and brown kids and kids that are underserved areas be able to get access to those classes. Because what we have realized that people seem to pit rural and urban against each other, but we have the same issues. And we need to make sure that we can solve them together. And we work together, we can make it happen. But it's going to take all of us to make sure that we understand what the issues are so that we can work together and cut out the divisiveness and just work together to make it happen. And one other last thing, I should, to sum it up, Trump loves the uneducated, and we have to change that.
What is your stance on organized labor, and how do you plan to support workers across District 7? Beginning with Captain Bain, you have 2 minutes.
I love this question. I just want to acknowledge the union leaders in this room. Please raise your hand. All right, we're back. So here are my policies. 1, we need better wages today and union jobs for tomorrow. Tennessee workers earn $8,000 less on average than the national median wage. And it's not because we work less. It's because the system is rigged against us. We also need a workers' first economy. Tennessee is one of the deadliest states to work in the country. That's why this year I filed the Workers' Right to Live bill, which would have made sure that companies were held civilly liable for those deaths and increase those penalties. And I'll take that act to Congress once I'm your Congresswoman. Finally, I'll make America build again. I think this is a really important conversation right now. Manufacturing. And so, Trump became president. He said, we're going to restore American manufacturing. We're going to, bring jobs back. And it just didn't happen. And instead, he's forced a tariff policy that's really not restoring American manufacturing and making us build again. In fact, since Trump took office, 3,300 jobs have been lost due to Trump's tariffs war in Tennessee. We also have an infrastructure crisis. We have 900 bridges in Tennessee that are structurally deficient. We need to make sure that our trade unions are involved in big projects in Tennessee, prioritizing union jobs in those contracts. And we need to put Tennesseans to work to rebuild our infrastructure, to rebuild our bridges, to rebuild our roads with union pay, local hiring, and dignity on the job. Thank you.
Yeah. Convention Center. Mayor Carl Dean did not want a single union contract on that facility. He was doing everything he could to block the unions from helping out build that facility. So some people who are even in here in the room came to me, and I went and I proposed a piece of legislation that would make all contracts with Metro be union contracts. Mayor Dean knew I had the votes to pass that, so all of a sudden he wanted to meet with me in his office. So Mayor Dean brings me into his office, and he made a compromise with me. If I would drop that bill, then about 6 unions would start the next week on the Metro Convention Center. Well, they started the next week, and the part of the convention center that was union labor came in under budget and on time. The part of the convention center that was non-union labor was over budget and late. So, I mean, bottom line, union folks get the job done, and we need to stand behind them. And I tell people all the time, if it wasn't for unions, I wouldn't have ever been elected. They've always stood behind me, and I'll always stand behind them. Thank you.
Stop cutting the microphone off. Thank you. So I'm a product of a union family. My mother was a member of the CWA, the Communications Workers of America, and I've seen a lot of things, probably some things that I probably wasn't supposed to say in words, but I learned some words that I wasn't supposed to learn when they went on strike. But when they did go on strike, I learned what a union family really means. They stick together and take care of each other. And that's what we have to continue to do, is still take care of the people who are in the unions. I think that we have to build a bridge. They've taken the trades out of the high school. But at the end of the day, college isn't for everyone. But you still have to be self-sufficient. You have to be able to take care of yourself. And I think that we need to make sure that our kids start to build the employment in that area. Because even right now, we said, hey, we have 100,000 construction jobs. We couldn't fill them because we don't have enough people to fill those positions. So we need to make sure that we can build those trades and put them back into the school system, because that is where we get our first exposure of learning about carpentry and plumbing and drafting and those type of things. So that's one of the things I would push for if elected.
The trouble with going last is some of the best answers have already been given. I agree with Afton on tariffs. I think tariffs are killing the middle class and the working class and what's going on right now in Washington. I also agree with Vincent on vocational education and vocational schools. We've sort of lost our way. I think Democrats are sometimes to blame. We can be a little elitist and we don't focus on vocational education, job training in our schools and for folks that don't go off to college. So we need to get back to that. I too come from a union family. My grandfather, CWA, old Ma Bell CMP telephone in Virginia, and he spent his career there after his service in the Navy, and thankful for that. And then for my family immediately, my father, when we lost sort of our job and our way of life, we filed bankruptcy, our family did. I was off school and I went in and I had student loans and I quadrupled down on my student loans. And that got me through. That was sort of my safety net. My little sister joined the Air Force, so that was her safety net. My little brother, who was in sort of middle school, junior high, he joined the union, United Food Commercial Workers, and that got him through high school. And it took him 7 years to get through college, but it was because of that job that was his safety net. And he is still in the exact same industry that he was in junior high and high school because of that job and because of that union. So I'm forever thankful for it. I know that unions built this country. I also agree that we've got, sorry, I'm looking at the time over there. We do have to build more. I think that ever since 2016, Trump and Hillary both said, oh, we've got an infrastructure bill, let's build more infrastructure. And everybody's talked about it since and nobody's actually done it. I've been out there working for companies on the front line, creating jobs that build infrastructure. And so I've got a history of that, a result of that. I've seen how these jobs materialize. I've been on the front lines of permitting those in my personal work and in the last 20 years in my career. So I've helped companies create those jobs that in turn create jobs for everyday people.
What is your view on members of Congress engaging in stock trading? Starting with Bo Mitchell.
It needs to be illegal. It needs to be stopped. We see what it's done. You see Mark Green cashed in. I mean, it's just totally unethical. They're getting information that the general public does not have access to, and they're able to do these trades, 2-3 days, sometimes a week in advance, and everyone's stock portfolio skyrockets. Both sides of the aisle. This is not throwing rocks at Republicans. There's plenty of Democrats who are doing it too, and it needs to be stopped.
Thank you. Appreciate you leaving the mic on this time. I think this is probably going to hit, you're going to be preaching from the choir up here. I think we all agree that it's unethical, it's illegal, and it should, in practice, should be stopped. It's insider trading at best. If we all don't have the information, then no one should be able to do it. I think that it's an opportunity that we can stop that. Once we get there, we can advocate for that. And it's just us, it's unfortunate that people can use these positions to enrich themselves. I think we all start in these positions because we want to help people. In some kind of way, we get lost through that. Traveling to this position, we start to aspire for higher positions, we want more wealth, Or people just get used to calling, yes, representative, yes, sir, and we get to think that we have some perceived power that we really don't. And so this is an opportunity for us to try to level the playing field. And that's why I love coming to places like this and talking to people who can vote, because this is what grounds you. This is what keeps you close to the people. Because sometimes when you don't meet with the people, you get farther away from them and you forget who you represent. And I want to make sure that we never forget that.
I think you're going to have unanimity up here. I think that we are all against insider trading. I think you look at Mark Green, and I do like what we've done in terms of transparency. We now track it, and members have to report what they're trading. And you know, on 9/11 last year, you know what Mark Green was doing? Making $50,000 stock trades on 9/11. And that worked for him, and he is cashing out. But it is both parties. We've got one member of Congress, she made $100 million last year, insider trading. Her portfolio outperformed every hedge fund in America. Everybody on Wall Street, she had a 60% return. I don't know if you checked your 401ks and what your 401k did last year, but Nancy Pelosi's returned 60%. And we need to call BS on that. Afton will say it, I'll just say BS. We have to call it. We have to call it. And that's the common sense that I will bring. A lot of times, these members, they're betting against American companies. So you can short companies, and there's all types of trades that you can make. It's not just to enrich you. Sometimes you're betting against American countries, and that is absolutely, it should be illegal, absolutely illegal. So that's the type of common sense. And I think Vincent hit on a good point. Sometimes people get in Congress and they get too comfortable up there. I never wanted to run for office. Again, 47, built a great career, have a great family. I love my life here in Middle Tennessee. I'm not particularly excited to go to Washington for very long. I sort of subscribe to the Jeffersonian approach that productive members of society should go legislate in Congress for a few years and then come back and get back to work. I'm not going to be a career politician. I've never run for office. I know we have folks on stage that have run for a long time, but that's not me, and I'm not going to be up there. I will never be a creature of Washington. Thank you.
Well, I'll say, unlike some of my colleagues on this stage, I have never taken corporate PAC money or money from predatory loan companies that have sold out our communities. And so that is a commitment that I will make to you all in Congress, is that I will never take corporate PAC money, and I'll never take money from companies like Advanced Financial, any of the companies that prey on our communities, both urban and rural. Lastly, I will co-sponsor the current Anti-Corruption and Public Integrity Act, which is a bill right now making its way through Congress, that would impose bans, lifetime bans, on congressmen who are lobbying. So no more lobbying for Congress, no revolving door between Congress and the people. Thank you.
Tennessee ranks among the lowest in voter turnout. What will you do to protect and expand access to the ballot? Starting with Vincent Dickson.
All right, thank you. I think we keep saying that Tennessee is a red state, and Tennessee is not a red state. I'm gonna quote one of my colleagues. Tennessee is not a red state. We have a voter engagement, and voter turnout problem. So we don't know what we are. But if we don't get people out to vote, then we have an issue. One is we have these antiquated laws that suppress our voting, especially in our Black and brown communities. When they did redistricting, what people don't realize, even though they changed our districts, actually they drew Bo and I in the same district, but we had to stick together to be like, no, we're going to stick together. One of us is going to move, you still have to deal with both of us. So do you want us now, or do you want us the angry ones? But the point is that we have to stick together when we do these type of things and work together. When it comes to some of these laws that they have, they do this purposely to keep us from doing it. And I was saying when they drew the lines for the redistricting, not only did they change our districts, but they changed our voting precincts. And some people who vote on voting day, when they went to the normal place where they go to vote, it was a totally different. They were maybe 5 miles from where they were going. And a lot of people have transportation issues getting there. So we have to be transparent and really fight for those bills. I think we need to, if people have felonies, and if you have served your sentence, and you've served your time, you've paid your debt to society, you should be able to vote again. Because it's taxation without representation, because you get it, we want them to get a job and be a productive member of society, but they're not getting to reap the benefits for it. So that's one of the things that I would work for, that once you serve your sentence, you should definitely be able to.
This is not necessarily a federal issue, unfortunately. This is a state issue, and that's sort of the reality of it. I think each state makes their own laws on voter registration, when you can request an absentee ballot, who can request it, how many days in advance. And so, unfortunately, it's really difficult to say, as a federal legislator, that this is what change I would do. I'm not going to make that promise. I will promise to sit down with the Republicans in this state and the leadership in this state and try and figure out how we can make gains in these antiquated laws that we have. The administration here likes to say, well, we're 51st in voter turnout and bottom of the barrel and all these other categories, but we're number one in integrity. And that's just lip service. That's lip service. So we've got to figure out how we can work to get that done. And that's something that our legislature has not been able to do. And we've lost ground in the legislature. We're still 1 out of 10 states that has a grocery tax. We're still 1 out of 10 states in the nation that can't expand Medicaid. We're not getting it done in the legislature right now. And that's why I'm stepping up to run, because I want to get results. Now, you partially have me to blame for Mark Goins. Mark Goins is the election commissioner. He works in the Secretary of State's office under Trey Hargett, director of elections. I sent him into retirement. He was a state rep, and he was running for state senate in 2003 against a state county mayor named Tommy Kilby. And the National Democrats sent me down here to move to Wartburg, Tennessee, and go run that race for Tommy. And out of 20,000 votes cast against a sitting state representative, we beat him by 248 votes in a special election on April the 15th, tax day, for a candidate that had never paid his taxes before, Tommy Kilby. God bless him. He became our state senator, and he helped advance Bredeson's agenda. We had the House, we had the governor's mansion, we had the Senate. Democrats in the state have come a long way and fallen a long way, and that's why we're not getting things done in the legislature around issues like groceries and Medicaid and, unfortunately, voting. I can change that, and I can work with Republicans to get it done. Thank you.
Garden, I really doubt that the Republicans will come to the table in good faith, as we've all learned in the legislature. But we really need to stop defending a broken democratic system and work to restore it. Not only will I work to restore the Voting Rights Act, but I want to talk about redistricting. The Tennessee Democrats in, 2010 or 2012, lost around 9 to 10 legislative seats because they were caught flat-footed, they weren't organizing, they weren't doing their due diligence to push back, they got lazy. They had a Democratic supermajority, they got lazy, and we have to be focused on 2030. Who's heard that Trump is trying to move the redistricting to mid-10? Have you heard that? Yeah, right. He wants to remove the status of immigrants within the census. It's a really scary time. So what I would do as your congresswoman, as your next congresswoman, is I would leverage every lever possible to not only support the organizing on the ground that is going to commit to a fair redistricting process, but to start the community organizing that needs to be happening right now. We need to be going out door to door, talking about fair maps, talking about what's going on in Texas, right? Because we have some of the most gerrymandered districts in the country, right? And so that's how I would leverage this position, is I would work to leverage any federal support possible to support the organizing of the civic engagement groups on the ground. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. I've fought redistricting twice as being a state representative on the ballot. The first time I ran, as I told you the story earlier, they thought they were going to redistrict a nice little Republican seat in Southwest Davidson County. They drew a 55-45 Republican seat that I won. So then this time in redistricting, they thought, well, we'll just take some of those Republican voters and we'll push them over with Green Hills, and we'll have a nice little Republican seat in the border of Davidson County. Well, I got my brother-in-law to run for that seat, and he now sits beside me on the House floor. So, but we've got to take them to court. I mean, when we're in the super minority, we don't have anything to do except go to court and fight. You know, Mark Goins, I mean, bless his heart is all I can say. You know, there's not an ethical bone in his body. You know, last year, my opponent on her petition, she forged like 5 names that we proved that she forged. One young man, he was on a boat between San Diego and Hawaii on the USS San Diego battleship, and he supposedly signed my opponent's petition. It's kind of hard. I don't know. But, you know, we've just got to work harder. And I'm glad Mr. Copeland brought up the sales tax on food in Tennessee that we still have. I'm the only candidate up here that has lowered the sales tax on food. During the gas tax debate, I demanded them lower the sales tax on food by 1 cent, or their gas tax was not going anywhere out of the transportation subcommittee I was on. So I've been successful at lowering the sales tax on food.
As a candidate, how will you engage with Hispanic voters across District 7? Starting with Darden Copeland.
Well, there's more than one grassroots organizer up here. I've spent my career knocking on doors, and I think that we have to go where people are. And that means town halls and forums. I'm committed to doing that throughout the race. I do that in my day-to-day job now. So I think it's a matter of going where people are and having those conversations and listening. And I think that there are too many politicians now that want to tell you this and tell you this and tell you this. And sometimes we just need to sit back and listen. So I think I would start by listening.
All due respect, Darden, knocking doors for someone who pays you a lot of money to do it for them. So to the highest bidder. But in terms of Hispanic community members, I have a large Hispanic part of my district in Madison. And during the national ICE operation, I went out on to monitor our federal government, our federal government that is overreaching, no transparency, no oversight, taking my constituents, right? Representative Andy Ogles called for my arrest. The Department of Homeland Security retweeted the video. Someone almost tried to abduct me from Cordell Hall, my office building, and I had to go underground for 3 weeks. And through all of that, I think what became increasingly clear is one, when we were canvassing this district, we were conducting a community needs assessment. We knocked the doors and they said 2 things. One, we don't feel like our representatives are doing enough for us. 2, we're scared of racial profiling, right? So they don't feel like their electeds are doing enough, right? So, okay, well, I stepped up. I also want to flag that I organized a Hispanic town hall a few weeks ago, and guess how many people showed up? 0. Why do you all think that is? Because they're scared. They are still having to do grocery runs with their family. They have a phone tree for groceries. People are still dropping groceries out on their house, on their doorstep. They're not allowed, they're scared to leave their house. Additionally, I think it's really important. It was a lesson learned, and I love a politician that says, hey, I learned something, I was wrong. And I learned that we need to communicate better, especially to diverse constituencies. And so after that, for our campaign, we're going to be working hopefully with Hispanic media to try to get out the word, making sure that our information is translated. So just know that we deeply care. We see you, we're here for you, and we're going to, if you elect me to Congress, I promise that I'll do everything in my power to ensure your safety.
As we have a comment directed at one of the candidates on stage, Darden Copeland, you get a minute to respond.
Afton, thank you for the extra minute. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. No, and I'll clarify. I think Afton was sort of saying that in my public affairs work, we go out and we do work on behalf of companies. True story. We also do work on behalf of nonprofits, trade associations. We build things like affordable housing. We've fought developers when they try to tear down cultural landscapes like Studio A and other concert venues and other historic buildings. We step up and we do that. We've done pro bono work for Voices for a Safer Tennessee in the aftermath of the Covenant shooting. I don't politicize that. That's not on my website. We just do it. And so this idea that I'm a mercenary and work for, I think she said highest bidder. It's not true. We've built 10 gigawatts of solar projects. We go into red and rural communities where projects are going to die at the city council level or the planning board unless somebody stands up and has community meetings and explains what a solar project is. And at the end of the day, then we let the board make their decision, and we're winning these votes by 1 and 2 votes. And so I still sleep very, very good at night. We don't do any work for private prisons or coal, or I'm still a Democrat. I've got to stop things, but I have to keep them coming. Thank you.
Back to the original question being, as a candidate, how do you plan on engaging with Hispanic voters across District 7? Bo Mitchell.
Yeah, thank you so much. How much courage does it take to attack line cooks and housekeepers? You know, that's what this current administration is doing, putting fear into people, driving vans up on corners, loading people in vans who have masks on, who refuse to identify themselves as federal agents, and taking them off to undisclosed locations. You know, we've got to go into that community, stand up for those people. I remember during the first term of this nutcase, I was so proud of people in Donaldson. ICE followed this family home in this minivan, and they pulled in their driveway, and the ICE vehicle pulled behind them. All of their neighbors walked out and surrounded their car and stood there until ICE left. You know, that's humanity. You know, that's what we need to do. And I just want to clear up one thing, since we have this jab and going back and forth. I can assure you, every person on this stage has been a paid staffer on a political campaign, has been paid to knock a door in their life. I can assure you that everyone on this stage has done that. So if you hear little jabs like that, you can just ignore them. Thank you.
Vincent Dickson.
Thank you. All right.
I'm just trying to spice it up.
Here we go. I told you the alcohol and the political. And I'm not saying she's been drinking. But I want to go back to, as far as I have been working with the Hispanic community for a while. I have 2 of my friends there, a dentist and a doctor. We saw there was a need years and years ago of where they were not going to the doctor. There was a disparity in the health incomes, just like it is in the Black community. So what could we do to help that? So they have very successful practices. They're their own, but on their off time, after their practices close, they have a clinic that's actually off Nolensville Road in Nashville. Off Nolensville Road. But if we able to provide low-cost dentistry and low-cost healthcare for them, help them to get some medications that they normally wouldn't get, because a lot of times the jobs that they're getting, they are paid cash, or that they pay very low wages and they don't have access to insurance. So it's not like I'm just now engaging them in this process. I have been a friend of that community, because at the end of the day, as I said from the beginning, it doesn't matter if you're Black, white, any other color you can come in between, brown, but it doesn't matter. You still have to take care of yourself, and you can't provide for yourself if you're not healthy. And if your health is very important, and we have to make sure we take care of those. So I still have a mechanism of we're already engaging with them, already offended that community. We just have to continue to make sure they feel comfortable and safe when it comes out to voting, because we've seen people getting attacked for doing the right thing. And that's unfortunate, and we have to stand up against that, because if we know what's wrong, we have to make sure we call it out. It's wrong, and we have to defend them as if it is ourselves. Because if it's them this time, it's us the next time.
Across the panel, we did have a couple of comments directed at Afton Bain. Would you like a minute to respond?
Yeah. I would. So I'm a social worker, and as part of our practice and our profession and how we're trained is to engage in cultural competency. And so I'm not fluent in Spanish, but I've really tried to ensure that all of my communication via my legislative office is translated in Spanish. And I will say that it's meeting the community members where they are. And right now they are absolutely terrified, right? And the Republicans, I'm trying to spice it up because we got to prepare for the, we got to prepare for the general. So, got to keep the jack coming. But immigrants are not the reason our grocery prices are high. They are not the reason we are struggling. That is a distraction from the fact that they have not addressed the issues of affordability in this state. And please remember that. Please preach it, proselytize, go door to door and say that immigrants are not the reason your grocery prices are high. Thank you.
Rural communities in this district face unique challenges. How would you, as a person in Congress, advocate for these communities in Washington? And it starts back at that time.
Love a mic. Okay, so this is my bread and butter. 9 years ago, I was hired as the community organizer for the Tennessee Justice Center when Trump decided to go after the Affordable Care Act and Medicaid. And I was out running around with Chaz in the 7th District, raising awareness. And in fact, I believe, I looked back at my photos, my first community organizing event was in Humphreys County, speaking to the public health care workers there about the impacts of Medicaid. And that was 2017. And since then, I have, my whole thing has been rural organizing. And so I was actually a campaign director for a group called Rural Organizing. And in that role, we were able to pass major federal legislation called the Recompete Act, which removed bureaucratic red tape from grants that rural communities get. And so oftentimes in rural communities, and you all can attest to this, your local officials don't have sometimes the technical capacity to apply for federal grants, right? Because there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work entailed, right? And so this bill removed that red tape. We were able to pass it with Republican Joni Ernst. So there's bipartisanship for you. And not only that, but this past year, I filed a bill called the 2025 Rural Prosperity Act, which would have designated and created an entirely new office within the Tennessee state government for rural communities because they have tailored needs, they have specialized, and they demand an agenda that will make them prosperous. So I have a track record. I care deeply about rural community, rural prosperity, and I will absolutely bring that fight to Congress. Thank you.
And just for transparency, I passed an ink pen. If anyone else would like one, I've got it. Bo Mitchell.
Yeah, Vince keeps worrying about the mic turned off. I'm so used to getting my mic turned off on the House floor that I try to get used to not even having a mic. But all of us up here are good candidates, but I don't have to talk about being hired on by an organization to go into the rural areas. I grew up in the rural area. I'm from Charlotte. Outside of Charlotte, called Doyle, Tennessee, on Promised Land Road. I know what rural problems and issues are. I'm not going to come into the rural area and try to tell you what your problems are. I've lived with you, and I'm going to listen to you and help you with those problems. One thing in the rural areas, community block grants, coming back home to the communities to be able to do those expensive water and sewer projects or any infrastructure projects are desperately needed in the rural areas, as well as, we've had so many congressmen, Democrat congressmen and Republican congressmen that refuse to do earmarking. Well, those amounts of money coming back home to a small town, $500,000 grant or a $2 million grant to help build a new city hall or to build a community center are the things that these communities can't afford themselves. When Charlotte, Tennessee, the property taxes there are barely enough to bring in to pay the garbage man for all the garbage pickup a year. So, the money is not there. So, those are the things that I want to do as a congressman to help these communities and to bring home their needs and to listen to their needs and try to go to Washington and be successful in fighting for those needs.
Vincent Dickson.
Thank you. I don't even know why I asked for a pen because I wrote this stuff down, but I have to take off my glasses to read it. So I can't see it with my glasses. But I wanted to just say, to answer the question is, I think I'm glad you asked that question because that's the essence of what I'm trying to get to. There isn't much of a difference between urban and rural areas. We still have failing schools in both spaces. And we saw during COVID that we have less access to broadband, even in urban cores as they do in rural areas. We have rising housing costs, and we still have people looking for jobs that are unemployed. So I think there's a crossover that we tend to keep saying, well, this happens in a rural area, not in an urban area. It happens in both places. So what one fights for, we fight for all. And we have to make sure that we continue to have that continuity, that we stand up for each other and be there for each other and not let that rural urban divide come between us because it's truly not there. It's a narrative that they have put in front of us. But when you're poor or when you're struggling, it doesn't matter if you live in Hohenwald or you live in Nashville. It just doesn't matter. Struggling is struggling. And we all should be striving and we should be thriving in this particular economy. Thank you.
So you sort of never forget where you grew up, and you never forget where you came from, and I think that's true for me. I grew up in Culpeper, Virginia. Culpeper is there's a city of Culpeper and a county of Culpeper. We lived in the county. We were a little bit smaller than Dickson, a little bit larger than Cheatham County. If we're naming street roads, I grew up on Fox Mountain Run. Fox Mountain Run. I've worked on statewide races all across the country and set up offices in rural communities. Truly, just never forget where I come from. That's just who I am. That's just who I am. Some of the issues that are important in rural communities, because I think there is sometimes a difference between rural and urban. Broadband access, it's just not there in these rural communities. It's not reliable. We have to have more of it. The Department of Agriculture and what's going on in the Trump administration, the cuts, they've probably cut 20,000 jobs right now, and that's impacting folks in these rural communities. That's their way of life. FEMA, if you look at what's going on in Montgomery County and some of the most recent flooding that happened up there, despite Mayor Pitts and others pleading to the administration to get designated for recovery and to have those federal fundings, it just wasn't there. And I don't think that anybody in the legislature in Congress went to the Trump administration and fought for it, and we have to do that. We talked about education earlier. I think more focus on vocational training, community colleges, and then also hospitals. We all talk about healthcare, but I've actually been on the ground helping to permit hospitals in rural and red communities that have to go through sort of state citing agencies, regional health boards. Some of you are familiar with the certificate of need process. We have to make that process easier in these rural communities to get through, or else we're not going to have that investment from the folks that can actually provide service. And if you can't provide it, then it's going to take longer for folks to go get care, or they won't actually go get that care, or they don't have the support mechanism there. So sort of all of the above. I think all of us are going to have great answers on that, but I've never forgotten where I've come from in Culpeper County. I happened to move to Nashville, fall in love, and have 2 kids, and so of our counties in this district.
And we did have a comment directed towards Bo Mitchell, so he gets in there.
You're welcome, Bob.
Last time I defend him. But there is a difference between urban and rural. When you live in a rural area and you've got to drive an hour, hour and a half to get to Nashville to a cardiologist appointment or to that cancer treatment, there is a difference. When you've got to drive that hour, hour and a half to take your kid to get school clothes, there is a difference. Your cost of those clothes just went up. You know, you're having to pay that gas to get there and to get home. So yes, it is more expensive sometimes. You know, the cost of living in Nashville is high, housing is high, but when you're living in that rural area and you don't have the health care and you don't have the access to the services and goods, it's costly that way as well. I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Our next question is, what do you believe is the importance of DEI? And Bo Mitchell.
3 words.
The diversity is important to all of us. You know, it was funny this year in the General Assembly. We had someone who called himself a preacher. He was a youth preacher at his church, and he brought the legislation to outlaw DEI in Tennessee. I asked him, you know, what book he was reading, because it was different from the book I grew up reading. You know, but a lot of those guys up there, they use books as weapons. You know, they'll either hit you over the head with one or they'll want to set one on fire. But I tell them if they'll open one book up and read some stories in it, it's got some pretty good stories in it. But diversity betters us all. If we don't surround ourselves with different types of people and different nationalities, then something's wrong. You know, I like telling a story. My youngest son, when he was going to preschool, you could either go to preschool two ways. Either you could test in if you scored high, or you could have special needs. So my son scored high, but he was assigned this little boy to help with him who had special needs. And this little boy had a chew toy, and his hands were always slobbery. And my son, it just grossed him out. But by the end of the year, the little boy's name was Charlie. He was so happy to be with Charlie. But you know what? I think my son learned a whole lot more from Charlie than Charlie ever learned from my son.
So when that bill the two bills that he referenced was going through, I had a question. I was like, which word do you disagree with? Diversity, equity, or inclusion? Because I don't understand what the problem is. And I think I want people, when you look at me, I want you to see a Black man. Because I want you to understand that my differences are not, my experiences are not like yours, but we can appreciate each other's differences. And that's what makes the world better. So when you have a problem and everybody has a homogeneous view of how it should be solved, you don't get to a real answer. So the more ways that you look at a problem, it's better. So I think we get opportunities, especially as a Black person or a woman. You don't get those opportunities if they aren't forced to. We wouldn't have those laws if people, if I'm gonna say it, if white men were equitable in what they were doing, because they set these laws and they were forced to give us a seat at the table. So it's important that we make sure that you have that diversity, the equity and inclusion, because that's how we get the best answers and solutions to a problem. So I'm very upset and very angry that they are attacking that and they're turning DEI into a bad word. Again, next year, next session, it'll be another word or some other acronym that they'll come up with that they don't like. It's all for a cultural war to keep us away from each other and working with each other, because we know we're better together, and we have to just make sure that we believe that and we practice that. Thank you.
Agree with my colleagues up here. I think the Democratic Party, we are the party of DEI. I have given years of my life to candidates that are African American, female, gay, straight, anywhere in between, and so I do the same thing in my practice. I've got 45 employees that, you know, they look like the rest of America, and so it's something that I practice, and it's something that we absolutely have to continue to fight for. I think sometimes, though, I think Democrats, we have such disdain for the Republicans that sometimes we need to include them too. And I think that we've got to figure out how to reach across the aisle and build bridges. And we're not we're going to disagree on that one. But I think that, you know, I think that we have to kill them.
Well, I'm not going to kill them with kindness when they're killing our people. So, however, I could go on and on about being a young progressive woman in Tennessee politics. It is an absolute boys' club, and I've had to fight tooth and nail to access spaces that men have access just inherently. Men decide to roll out of bed every day and run for Congress. This was an intentional, I know this seat was, you know, a special election, but this is an intentional step in the trajectory to take back the state. But since we're running for Congress, I want to talk about what's going on federally. So Trump's attacks on DEI are making their way through the agencies. And this is a really important one for USDA. So a few years ago, USDA settled one of the most historic lawsuits ever with Black farmers in this country. okay? However, just recently, Trump has leveraged his power because Trump can change the regulations without Congress of these agencies, okay? So this is what he's been doing. He attacks Title 7, which inevitably is how he removed the programs that benefited socially disadvantaged farmers, including Black farmers. And so I just wanted to flag that this is now inching its way to Tennessee, right? We have USDA regional offices. These programs benefit Tennesseans, Black Tennesseans, Hispanic Tennesseans, female Tennesseans, and Trump is weaponizing as a distraction this war to remove the ability for these people to access federal programs and the benefits. So I just want to flag that this is ongoing and it's going to take someone like me, an organizer with federal acumen, organizing acumen, to understand how to repeal this and move forward once we get him out of office. Thank you.
What is your position on healthcare access and how would you address rural hospital closures in rural areas? Starting with Vincent Dickson.
Thank you. It's almost like you gave me a softball on this. So actually, I did get to say that when we talk about between the urban and rural areas, some of the differences, but what some of the similarities. One of the things is access to healthcare. Even though I live in Nashville in the urban area, we have a huge deficit and we have a healthcare desert. Even though I might live in the inner city, it still would take me 30 minutes or 45 minutes to get to a hospital because there's no hospital. So what I partner with some of the hospitals in our area, HCA, and some others, I've been able to advocate for them to build standalone, freestanding hospitals. And they've done 2 in areas in Dickson County that I've worked with personally. And I think that's going to be an issue of what we're going to have to do because this big, bad, beautiful bill is going to close 9 hospitals here in Congressional District 7. It's going to be 1. Tennessee, but it's going to close 1 here in C7. And we have to make sure that's in conjunction with the 12 or 13 that we've already had closure. So when you close hospitals, you lose jobs, you lose your tax base, you lose your tax base, you can't afford schools, you can't afford fire department, you can't afford the police department. So healthcare is a cornerstone of our economics, especially in our district in rural and urban areas. So we have to make sure that we have access to those areas and we make sure that we have doctors that are willing to work in those areas and incentivize them coming out of medical school, whether it's reimbursement of their loans or some sort of forgiveness, to make sure they come working here, but they absolutely have to have a facility to come work in. Thank you.
So I agree with Vincent. We've got to have more facilities in our rural communities, and we need to look at the certificate of need process. We need to look at why this investment's not being made, and we need to look at incentives for not just doctors, but also companies to set up rural healthcare facilities. And it doesn't need to be a big, huge hospital. We also need to work with our nonprofits and some of the folks that are on the front lines of treating folks day in and day out. The other thing is the big bad bill. We've got access to folks to Medicaid, 300,000 folks in the state of Tennessee. They're going to lose that. And they didn't do it to lose it right away. They said it's going to go into effect after the midterms in 2026. So they know that the policy stinks and it's going to have repercussions. And so they pushed it out, past the line. The cuts could have been worse here, except we never expanded Medicaid here. We've got TennCare that we failed to expand. So we have to figure out, and I think as your next congressman, I would work with the state legislature, the Republican leadership, whoever the governor may be, and try and figure out how can we expand more coverage. You saw this, you see certain states like Alaska and others that because they have some folks that are sort of moderate, they were getting carve-outs in the big bad bill to allow for healthcare. You've got folks in Missouri that say, hey, I'm going to vote for it, but I'm going to add some extra pork in there to bring home to my district and to my state so that we can have more access and more facilities in these rural communities. We have to have somebody that's willing to go to Washington and do the same thing, because at the end of the day, some folks might be upset if I work across the aisle with a Republican, but if I can build a hospital or prevent a closure or expand Medicaid, then that's going to help everyday people in this district. You might not agree with that. I know Afton might not agree with that, but we have to do it. I'm giving you an extra minute, Afton.
You get a minute to respond.
As someone who's been trying to expand Medicaid, and my colleagues can attest to this in the state, I don't think, Darden, that you're going to be able to do it on your own after 15 years of nonstop organizing. But I appreciate the effort. I understand what you're saying. So let's talk about, I want to shift to talk about federally qualified health centers. Who knows what I'm talking about? FQHCs. Jesse does. So these are really important facilities that are the lifeblood of our healthcare infrastructure, especially in rural communities. So Tennessee has over 30 of these operating, around 250 sites. Oh, sorry. Okay, so I was responding to that, but I think I'm next. Okay, so I'll just keep going.
He gets a minute to respond.
Oh, he gets a minute to respond.
I'll cede it back to you after.
Thanks, sir. We're getting drinks after
Now
this,
you
right?
start.
Okay, great.
Now you start.
Okay, all right. So this is what's happening with these FQHCs, and I just want to flag for you. So these serve low-income rural residents in Tennessee, and they benefit from Medicaid, Medicare, and the 340B drug pricing program. Okay, now here's what happened. Trump kept their funding flat. Okay, so he didn't. Well, I get to keep going. Okay, so Trump kept their funding flat, and effectively he didn't increase it at all, right? So that's actually a cut. I also want to flag that these qualified health centers are now favoring applicants with abstinence-focused and faith-based morals. So now this has dripped down to our rural healthcare facilities and how they are processing clients to receive healthcare, okay? Lastly, Trump's administration rolled back telehealth for these federally qualified, and this was a major, exciting innovation for a lot of these FQHCs during COVID, right? Because people couldn't travel. So they improved their programming in terms of the access of telehealth opportunities, and now Trump has rolled that back. And so it's FQHCs, I will ride or die for these facilities because they do serve low-income rural residents. And I think we're going to have to start having really strategic conversations about how the big bad bill is going to cut these programs. And I just want to say we've got 4 or 5 questions left. So thanks for everyone that sat with us. I know it's getting a little hot in here, but I'm done. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. I'll agree in part with what Dixie said. And I hope he's correct that there's only one hospital that's in jeopardy of closing from the big, bad, beautiful mess. But I kind of think he's probably a little off. We got the hospital in Ashland City, which is now more or less a glorified emergency room. I think it's in jeopardy. The hospital that just reopened in Houston County, I think it's in jeopardy. I think Decatur counties that just recently reopened, it will be in jeopardy as well. And you know, we like to think, you know, Horizon is safe, but I mean, these hospitals are running on 2% and 3% margins, and they cut Medicaid, Medicare by as much as they have. I mean, I don't think any hospital in a rural area is safe. So we've got to fight like hell to repeal this bill and to stop these draconian actions from taking place. People losing health care, I mean, that affects so much more in their life. You know, Tennessee leads the country in bankruptcies caused by medical bills. There will be more and more of that if we allow this bill to go into effect. Not only with the $300,000 from the cuts, but Tennessee's budget is going to have a gaping hole in it because they've gotten rid of something called the provider tax. Hospitals in Tennessee finally gave up on the legislature to finally expand or do anything right. So they said, hey, just tax us, put a tax on the hospitals, we'll pay the tax. Y'all can send that to the federal government, and in turn, we get $9 back for every dollar we send to Washington. Well, now that's been cut. So there's going to be a billions of dollar hole in our budget.
Question here. Do you live in District 7? If you do not, how will you learn how to represent this district, starting with Darden Copeland?
I do, and I'll defend Afton here because this is directed at her, and that's BS. She doesn't live here. She can still represent this district. I think that's a personal attack. So yes, I live here. I lived here since 2008.
Thanks, Darden. I'll take it easy on you for the rest of the event. Yeah, so this is a question. So one, I have 12,000 voters that vote in my House district and this congressional district. Many of them asked me to run for the seat when they felt like their elected leaders were not doing enough. Okay. I live walking distance from the line in some of the most MAGA gerrymandered congressional districts in the country. Right. And I'm a fighter, right? And I've been at the state legislature. I've been organizing across the state. I have a great track record in this district in terms of my rural organizing for the past 9 years. And I would be honored to serve you all. And I hope that, being in walking distance from a very MAGA gerrymandered congressional line is not the definitive factor why you might not or not vote for me, but very grateful to be part of this race. It's been really enjoyable. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I guess I've lived in multiple parts of this district. So I guess all my life I've lived in the 7th Congressional District, whether it be in Dickson County or in Davidson County, as well as worked in Montgomery County. So though I live in this district, I look forward to representing the people of this district. We have a wide district from, Kentucky all the way to Alabama, almost stretches to Mississippi, all the way to the Tennessee River. So there's plenty of area to represent in Tennessee. And I think, I don't know if this is an issue or not, but I live in the district. Thank you.
I live in the district as well, so it's an easy question. The one thing that I would like to say there, we all have overlap in our districts that over our House districts that overlap with the congressional district. And in my colleague to my left, I think when y'all look at the numbers, again, I have an accounting degree, so numbers kind of speak to me in a different way that probably most people don't. You probably don't want to hear that story, but it's just about 2% of overlapping in their district. And in my colleague to my left, there's about 4%. And in my district, there's almost 14%. But that is not representative of the entire district. That's just saying that we still have work to do in other districts. So being the top vote getter, the second top vote getter, that's great. But at the end of the day, we have to engage everyone. We have 14 districts that we have to. And we know that with this special election, there's going to be even less people come out there, which is an opportunity for us as Democrats to get out there and mobilize people. So what we should do, and the ask that I have for everyone here, is to go vote early and take 3 people with you. And I live in a district.
And this will be our final question before we move into audience Q&A. States like Tennessee have gained national attention for anti-LGBTQ legislation. How will you, as a member of Congress, work to protect the civil rights of all Tennesseans within the district? Starting with Afton Bank.
Yeah, so many of you all know that I have been really outspoken about what's happening in terms of our anti-LGBTQIA landscape. And not only that, but I think I also want to acknowledge that the Democratic Party has had a longstanding difficulty with acknowledging some of these issues. And so that's why this past session, I spent a lot of time meeting with some of my fellow Democrats to talk about these issues at hand and how they can improve. But in terms of the state, we're focused on the Republican Party is focused on the wrong 1%. We are focused on the wrong 1%. It is not trans Tennesseans who pay taxes. It is the billionaires and the corporations that are driving this distraction to drive us away from the real issues, which is affordability, that we can't afford groceries, that we can't afford rent, we can't afford our mortgages, right? And so I have been on the front lines. I have stood up in committee and on the floor fighting what is some of the most anti-LGBTQIA rhetoric and people in the country, right? And not only that, but our unelected activist attorney general, Jonathan Scribetti, filed a lawsuit with the Supreme Court that undid gender affirming care in this country, right? And it provides much needed healthcare for our trans kids. And so I've been in this fight. I will take this fight to Congress. I think it's a restoration of a lot of these titles that I just discussed, Title IX, Title 10, a lot of these titles which Trump has leveraged and weaponized to reinforce anti-LGBTQIA priorities in his administration. So I've been an outspoken advocate in the Tennessee legislature, and I will absolutely take that fight to Congress as your next Congresswoman.
Yeah, thank you. I'm never quiet on the House floor when I see injustice. For several years, they've been bringing these bills, and I'm on the Health Committee. So they bring those bills. I'm also on the Health Sub. So I've seen the taking health care away from children legislation over and over again. They brought in this one little professional testifier that, you know, I'll sit there with my iPad in the committee, and they'll bring up these experts in the health committee. You know, usually it's a doctor who's lost their license in multiple states that the Republicans bring up. Or this one little professional testifier, she had testified in 14 states on the trans health bill, and, you know, telling her story, you know, and everyone was, you know, the Republicans were sobbing, you know, but I saw she was making about $750,000 being a professional testifier, and she could care less the damage she was doing to children in our state. You know, she could care less if a child committed suicide because of her actions or not. So I've got a history of standing up, from standing up and making sure the Nathan Bedford Forest bus got removed from the Capitol, to standing up for trans kids. I'll continue to do that in Washington. Thank you.
One last time. Couldn't resist, could you? Turn the mic off. No, I'm just joking. Love you, though. One thing I think we have to realize that, you know, the Democratic Party is supposed to be the big tent party. And we're supposed to love and protect and fight for the least of us. Because as the Bible says, what we do to the least of us is what you do to me. And we have to really take that to heart. And I think this is an opportunity for us to bond together and build a coalition that we have seen in the past, but maybe that relationship has kind of dwindled down in the past. But every session, we see a slate of hate of bills that are just hateful. And we have more transgender bills than we have transgenders in Tennessee. And it's just a cultural war that they know that will divide us and take our attention away and distract us. Because people are still struggling at this moment. Most people still, as I go back to what I said earlier, people want to make sure they have enough food on their table, a roof over their head, enough money to pay their bills, and if they get sick, to go see a doctor. Because whether you're tall, short, fat, skinny, black, white, LGBTQIA, straight, it doesn't matter. You still have to take care of yourself. You need something to eat, and you need to be able to be a productive member of society. So the only way we can do that is if we band together and we work together to change who are in these seats. And as my colleague reminded me, it says we have to move our feet so we can change who's in that seat.
That's right.
Thank you.
I agree with everything that's been said up here. I think that we have to continue to protect LGBT, the community, the trans community. We have to protect children, and we're the Democratic Party. That's who we are. That's not up for debate. There's certain support mechanisms I think that the Trump administration has cut, whether it be hotlines for suicide and a number of folks that this community is being singled out unfairly, and we have to call them on it. And that's the part that I think we need to go back in and pull some of that back. It's the same thing with DEI. They're trying to divide us. And the issue here is if it affects one community, it affects all of us. And I think that's how we approach it as Democrats. And I would be the same way.
people at home. All right, so now we are going to move on to audience Q&A. If you have a question that you would like to personally ask, please line up right here down the middle and come over here to Maria Uppelman. She'll hand you the microphone. Please keep your questions to 30 seconds, and again, you'll have the same amount of time to respond.
Any questions?
2 minutes.
Okay, let's get our thoughts together and remember we're holding the short rows here, so we can and they've been up here and they've done a great job answering these questions. How long we got this? Yeah. Okay, so it's the same format. Zach will call over the panel. And you ask a question and then go into.
I'm Frank Matthews from Robertson County. I'd like to know which of you have participated in protests or march since inauguration day, since January 20th. And what role you believe the Democratic Party has in supporting or sponsoring or providing leadership for protests and marches. Okay. That's my question.
Oh, you're.
Maria, can you repeat the questions? We don't hear it. Can someone repeat the question? My thought? Okay, the question was, which of you have participated in marches or demonstrations since inauguration day? And what role do you believe the Democratic Party has in providing leadership or sponsoring the nationwide demonstrations, 50501, there was resistance. And so far, we haven't seen much from the Democratic Party on this issue.
Thank you for your service, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I've only participated in one of the demonstrations. It was down West End in Nashville, but it's necessary. Our state legislature has tried to make it a felony a lot of times for people to have opposition and raise their voice, which, as John Lewis says, we need to get a little good trouble. And I think the protests, just allowing people to feel safe to come out, join together and bond together against this administration's needed, very much needed. Totalitarianism is upon us, and either we can sit back and do nothing, or we can step up and raise our voices.
Thank you. I wouldn't say I've participated in a protest, but I remember when the Proud Boys were marching through downtown Nashville. I think that they led a few people down there to just kind of see what was going on, to make sure people were safe, because it was happening literally across from the legislature. And they were just walking freely. And I think actually the Metro Police Department came out but to protect their rights. And I understand that, because I think everybody's entitled to due process. But at the end of the day, I think that we have to build this coalition, as I keep talking about, because it starts with the people. And I think we're just the messengers, but we have the opportunity to give some structure to the protest. But I think we have to make sure that we understand the issues that we're protesting about, and we don't get people riled up unnecessarily. And when I say that, not unnecessarily, but as we realize that our words have power, and we use that power for good. And when something is wrong, we have spoken up, and we do lead protests, especially in our House. We've walked out, we've led a silent protest in the House, and we walked out in things that we didn't like. And that spilled over outside the courthouse, outside of the legislature. So it's important that we lead by actions and our words.
Yeah, so I've been characterized as being a corporate guy and out for the highest bidder, but I've actually got a decent little list here as I think about it. I didn't come in with this list, but the Proud Boys was one where they were walking right past my office in downtown Nashville We have a historic building. It's on the National Registry of Historic Places, and we allowed the protesters to come in to use the restrooms, to feed water, and sort of recharge and go back out because they were coming through downtown Nashville right on the sidewalk in front of my building. So we were supportive of the folks that wanted to come in there. Afton and I were we did the Good Trouble protest in Williamson County together. We were the only two that were there for that one. There was a free speech issue at Vanderbilt University. We had a reporter at the local paper who was arrested there and sort of unfairly thrown into jail. And it was a really, bad move on behalf of Vanderbilt and their leadership. And I found a quote where the chancellor had said, hey, when you make a mistake, they should be called out on it. We printed the yard signs that the students used to go and protest over there. Again, I did that not for gratification or to be able to say it up here. That's just sort of who I am. I wanted to be behind the scenes and provide that assistance. The other one, I took my son. He was studying Black History Month. He wanted to go to DC. I wanted to show him the BLM mural in Washington, DC. So in addition to the MLK exhibit and monument, we went and saw the awards or the portraits for Obama. That was what my son said he wanted to go and see. But we also looked at the protest sites up there in Washington, DC. And then the most important one that I have not necessarily led, but taken a part of and helped organize was the response after the Covenant shooting, where we locked arms from the Capitol to somewhere in Midtown. But one of the little girls that was shot goes to church with me. I'm friends with her parents, and I was at her house after it happened, and it was incredibly just heart-wrenching to see that. So help put that march together as well.
Thank you so much for your question. So I'm the only candidate on stage that has probably had my hands in every single protest across the state for the past 9 years. My fingers in some ornament of that. When Trump came to town, I helped organize almost every single resistance protest outside, from starting with Municipal Auditorium. As Darden, when the Covenant School shooting happened, those of us in Nashville that are considered the best at what we do in terms of helping to organize these types of events were called in. And I actually took a leave of absence from work for 12 days to organize outside the expulsions and all of that, and actually organize the final press conference of the night following the Tennessee 3 expulsion. To today, which this past session, the Tennessee supermajority passed a bill called the Peace Act, which was their response to the Nazi activity in Nashville. But unfortunately, it erodes your First Amendment rights to protest. It makes it a crime to basically leaflet, and then it removes your ability to film a police officer within 25 feet. And so all of this is a growing and aggressive response to inhibiting your ability to protest. And I've been on the front lines fighting to ensure that you do have that ability. I organized a massive rapid response call, which I think some of you were part of, so that you could engage with attorneys. So for me, I'm the embodiment of an organizer who became a legislator who is now trying to retake the Democratic Party, and that we need more resistance as part of its roots. And I will say that some of my colleagues on this stage did vote for that bill to erode your First Amendment right. Thank you.
Candidates, because of our line, we're going to shorten your answers to 1 minute. And Melanie is going to let you know when it's 30 seconds and then stop. So.
My name's Jim Allen. I live in Dickson. We got a real quick question. Well, if elected, how do you plan on communicating to your constituents?
Great question, because that's very important, because if you're not communicating with your constituents, how do you know what the needs are? And so what I would plan to do is we do have town halls, and then plus I have Office for Constituent Services that is specifically designed to make sure that we stay in contact. I think I always wanted to be one of the most accessible elected officials in Tennessee. So I literally give my cell number out to people, but I also want people to come up to me when they see me at the grocery store, see me at the gas station, at church, and talk to me, because I don't keep conventional hours. So I think there's an opportunity, because some people communicate through social media, but some people you have to actually get out and talk to, and you can't paint a broad stroke with everyone in order to do that. So I think you have to use different mechanisms, whether it's newsletters, social media, town halls, but you have to be proactive, and you can't spend all your time in Washington. And when you're back here, you have to actually come out, meet, and touch the people.
Yeah, I think I'll never forget that, this position is a servant to you all, the people, and that's who I am. That's actually the major that I studied in college was leadership studies. I had a double major in political science, but I truly, I think, have the heart of a servant, and you're there to serve the people. So that means you've got to go out and you've got to hold community meetings. You've got to be present. I volunteered my church's youth group, my wife and I, and we did 10 years there before our two kids came along, got older. And one of the things that they gave me when I left, they gave me this plaque and just said present, because they knew that I was always present. I was present in their lives, not just in church or on Sunday night, but in their extracurriculars. And you just have to show up. And that's, I think, my approach to sort of the way I run my business and the way that I've run my life, the way that I run my family. You have to be present. I will be present in all 14 counties if elected to serve.
Dickson, I love you. How many town halls have you had this year? Okay, so I've had multiple town halls every month with corresponding with my council member of the district. I've had over 8 town halls in my district and last year as well. So this is a muscle that I've built. I really believe in holding town halls routinely, of which I've had. Second is that in order to keep this district, we are going to have the best caseworkers in the state working in this district. When I knocked doors for Justin Canoe in the 7th Congressional District in 30 seconds. Okay, never mind. We need the best caseworkers. And 3 is that as a social worker, I've been conducting community needs assessments in my district now to get a sense of what folks want and to get them plugged into the work ahead. And so we've had success running these community needs assessments to get more people engaged and involved. So those are the 3 things: hire a bunch of good social workers, community needs assessments, and making sure that I have town halls.
Okay, Vincent, your name was invoked, so you get 1 minute.
Okay, thank you. Correct. I have not had any town halls, but there's not a need for me to go to town halls because every other week I'm at someone's neighborhood community association. This is what I do. I'm in the community. I go to churches, and I don't just go when it's election time. And I do spend time at my church first. Like tomorrow, I go at 8:30, and then I hit another service. But I go to the neighborhood association meetings because that's where you get to learn what's really going on. And I also, whenever I go to a meeting, I team up with my council person because a lot of people don't understand the differences of what you do on the state level and what you do on the council level. So it's important to have that communication with you there so you're not passing the buck. So, well, you need to talk to a council person. That way you get a solution when you're there. And I think we get more out of that when we have a collective meeting together.
Yeah, I've served 14 years in we'll have served 14 years in the State House, 8 years in the Metro Council, numerous public meetings over those years. We've got an extensive email list, but there is a difference between being a congressman and a state legislator. I've had town hall meetings, with Caleb, my brother-in-law, and State Senator Heidi Campbell, who has endorsed me. We've had town hall meetings together over the last several months, but as a state legislator, that's a part-time job. Most of us have full-time jobs. You're making $27,000 a year as a state legislator. So I defend Benson. If he hadn't had any, he may be working. He may have to do a job. So thank y'all.
Jonah is going to be our last questioner, so I appreciate everybody who would like to ask a question, but because of time constraints, he's our last guy.
My name is Ruth Thompson from Dickson, and I just want to know what the top 5 cash crops of District 7 are.
It's a great question. I bet soybeans are up there. Corn's probably up there. Tomato, do I get a? No, look. No, we should know that. And I think that my pledge to you is to be a student. And it is a full-time job, and Bo's right. It is a full-time job to be a congressman, and we all have a lot of learning to do in this role. I do think that, yeah, I've got work to do.
Same.
Yeah, unfortunately, I would say marijuana is probably the number one cash crop throughout the state of Tennessee. It's been that way for some time. But tobacco, corn, soybeans, hay, whether you believe it or not, hay is a crop, and if not enough hay is brought in, our livestock will falter. So there's those 5. Thank you.
So I was gonna say. He answered, so there's no need to.
Oh, my name is Raul, and I'm from Montgomery County. My question is, if elected, what is your plan to reverse all the damage that the Trump administration has done?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough. We're talking irrevocable damage. I mean, USDA fired their best and brightest 15,000 staffers that were supposed to be the next generation of USDA agency they're gone. So it's going to be a long slog. And especially in Tennessee, things are about to get really bad. They're bad now. They're about to get worse. And that is why you need someone like me, who is an organizer, who can leverage the different levers of power to bring unlikely coalitions together, but to also work federally with these other coalitions in other states to figure out a plan in order to redo all this. It's going to be comprised of litigation. Hopefully we'll have a Democratic Party that believes in transformative policy to undo and repeal a lot of this and to push forward a vision, right? And then working with our state and local allies to make sure it's implemented once we pass it. Thank you.
As I said earlier, first and foremost, I think the person who wins this seat, if the numbers remain like they are, you've got to go up there and try to repeal that bill. Bottom line, repeal the bill. U.S. aid, the number of people, that's going to take years to fix and to build up our image and character around the world from the damage that's been done through what Trump has done to U.S. aid. The National Weather Service, I talked with 2 congressmen after the flood in Texas, and both said the layoffs at the National Weather Service and NOAA were directly responsible in part for all those deaths in Texas. So, I mean, the actions of the Trump administration are killing people, and we've got to stand up there and fight against it. Thank you.
Well, it's amazing. It's only been a little over 7 months, and we're already talking about the damage that he's done that is causing us and going to continue to cause us harm. And so it's a great question, but I think that what we have to do is we have to work with other states and make sure we get other people elected in those. So that it's the same problem that we have here in Tennessee. We need help in the legislature. We need help in those rooms, and we have to get different butts in those seats in order to help us vote some of this down and change the direction. So we have to make sure that some of those opportunity districts that we have that are across the United States, that we work hard to flip those seats. That's why it's very important that everyone get out and vote early and help flip this seat. We can do it, but that's going to give them help so we can stop some of these bills. One of the things that we do mainly that we do well is we prevent bad bills from happening. And that is what we have to continue to do, but we can't do it if you don't have help. But in order to have help, you got to invest and go back into these opportunity districts and really get people ready to vote.
It's a great question, and I wish that any one of us could absolutely undo the 50 years of generational mistakes and just, it's evil what they're doing. And I don't think any one of us can do it alone, and I don't think any one of us can do it on day one. I think we're at a little bit of like triage right now, and we have to stop the bleeding. We're losing these votes up there by 1 vote in Congress and 2 votes. And so sending a message and sending the right Democrat that can win the general election. We can't govern if we can't win. And we can't tie the tourniquet if we don't send a Democrat to the seat. If not, we're in danger of having 2 Ogles in Congress for Middle Tennessee, or worse. So we have to win. And that is why I'm running, so that we can win and sort of hold serve until we get to 2026 and then have the midterms. And then when our party has the House, we have real parity. We have a real sense of check and balance. So it's great for all of us to think we're going to change this and sponsor this on day one. It's not going to happen just yet. We have to win.
Hi, I'm Paige and I'm from Clarksville, and my question is about women's health care. And it's been over 2 years since the fall of Roe, and Republicans have entered the phase of ever on and find out, because it just announced that our birth rate has fallen to the lowest rate ever in history in the United States, because women are afraid to have kids or can't afford it or whatever the reason may be. So what would your plans be to make healthcare accessible to all women across the country, where it's not a patchwork of it's safe in one state but not in another state? What are your plans to fix that?
Thank you for that question. As I said earlier, I'm on the health sub and the full health in the state house. So I've been fighting these fights. It's a tragedy that a woman in this state should be forced to carry a rapist still, or baby, or a child could carry some pedophile's incestual assault on her baby. We've got to do something in this state. My family is a little different from other families. We have one child that's adopted. We have another child that's embryo adoption. So we're very familiar with women's health and the lack and fertility issues and things like that. So I'm going to go up there and be a defender for women on day one. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, I'm a little different, so I think that this is interesting. I am Catholic, and I'm a gun owner, and I actually sit on the board of Catholic Charities. And when they asked me to sit on the board, I said, you know what I stand for. Are you sure you want me on this board? And they wanted my voice on there because I have 2 daughters. And I'll be doggone if I let anybody tell them what to do. And I explained to them from the beginning. I explained to them when we started having these issues about abortion rights and reproductive rights. What does it mean to you? Do you think that somebody doesn't even know? You think the government should be able to tell you what to do? So we have to fight to get some of those people in the areas so we can repeal these particular bills that have impacted women's rights, because it's not right. No one should be able to tell someone else what to do with their body. You should have autonomy to do whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do. That's a personal decision between you, your family, and whatever higher spirit that you believe in.
Yeah, I agree with Vincent there. My wife's a nurse practitioner. She's worked in NICU and others. And I've got friends that are Vanderbilt that say this is draconian, and they see it. I hear about it on the front lines of folks that are in the NICU that are being forced to take a baby to term that has no brain. And so I will never get in the way of a woman's right to choose. And I will do whatever is in my power to change what just happened a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it is suffocating being a woman in this state. I have chosen not to have children because of the dangers around that and not being able to afford kids. So this question really resonates with me. We have the highest maternal mortality rate in the country, which was released last week. This is a severe and compounded crisis that is going to, as we've all intimated, it's going to take decades to undo. But I think most important, having a female in this seat as your next congresswoman is important to push back against a lot of the rhetoric and legislation at the federal level. Because right now, our federal delegation, all you hear is Marsha Blackburn, right? And we have the opportunity to not only run bills that will enable us to have the reproductive freedom here, but to push back on the narrative that women don't deserve dignity, that we do not deserve bodily autonomy. And honestly, I just want the government out of my bedroom and off of my body, period.
Jonah is our last question from the audience, but please remember to vote in the straw poll. And after his question and their answers, we'll have a 3-minute closing remarks from the panel.
Hi, I'm Jonah. I'm born and raised here. My question is, what will you do to protect special education and improve it? Because I was a recipient of special education and they didn't know how to handle me, and they pretty much failed me. So we need to protect civil rights.
Yes.
Thank you. And as I stated earlier, my wife, she is an educator, and I'm glad you asked that question. One of her students is blind. So imagine the challenges that a blind child has to overcome in elementary. And so I'm a big proponent of making sure that we protect those who need the protections, especially in Tennessee, especially when they just passed this big, bad, beautiful bill that's going to try to roll back some of the protections that we have in these schools. Because it's very important. Every child deserves an quality education, regardless of your ability or disability. And so we have to make sure that we protect those, because if it comes back to the states, they have shown that they don't care about our kids. They want to keep us uneducated. They want to keep us poor. And we have to make sure that we give every child the opportunity to survive and thrive in this particular environment. So thank you. And I hope that after you have matriculated through high school, that you're doing well and you found the resources that you need to help you continue to grow as a person.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And it really, that hits really hard. That hits harder than anything Afton has thrown at us. But to hear you say that the system has failed you, because I don't look at you and see you as a failure. You're here, you're participating, you're asking the questions. You seem like a productive member of society. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for asking that question and putting yourself out there. I think we have to stand up for everybody, and we have to look at what the cuts are doing and how we can get them back piece by piece, $1 million by $1 million. And we have to do better by everybody in our community, whether they have a disability, whether they have a learning disability, whether it's a physical disability. And I pledge to do that as your next Congressman.
Jonah, I just want to laud you because for anyone who doesn't know, Jonah, a true advocate for all of these programs, and if you don't know him, please get to know him after this meeting. He's just an incredible advocate. So Tennessee underfunds special education by over $250 million per year compared to its legal commitment at the federal level. And so as your next Congresswoman, I would fully fund the federal commitment to the Individuals with Disabilities with Education Act. I also want to acknowledge that we have an opportunity in this state to find plaintiffs with regard to vouchers, right? The federal voucher program, because it will discriminate against students with disabilities and their God-given right to obtain an education that is equitable and accessible in our public school system. So I think there's a lot of strategy involved with that, but as your next Congresswoman, I will absolutely fight for students with disabilities to ensure that they have the same access as their counterparts.
Yeah, thank you, Jonah. And I too want to apologize as a member of the Tennessee General Assembly. If you were failed in public schools, it's our fault as well. And we fight every day in the General Assembly to try to improve education, especially for special needs students, special education students. as a father of a child with an IEP, I know what it's like to go to that meeting each and every year and sit down with the school administrators on the other side of the table who are always trying to take away accommodations. They want to do less and less each year because the teachers, let's face it, they've got enough in front of them. They're underpaid, overworked, and over paperwork to death by the state already. And then you add the extra work of a special education child in their classroom. But we've got to defend those kids. They're going to make, sorry.
We will now move on to final remarks of the evening. You'll each get 3 minutes to make your closing remarks here. We're doing this in alphabetical order by last name. So Afton Bay, you are kicking us off.
All right, thanks for bearing with us. Give yourselves a round of applause. You survived almost 3 hours. Oh, okay. So you've heard a lot from all of us tonight. How we'll flip this seat, how we'll govern, what you can expect from us as your next congressperson. But if you feel like things are working right now, I am not your candidate. If you feel like one candidate will save us all, I am not your candidate. If you think the Democratic establishment did a good job with the power we gave them for the past 20 years, then I'm definitely not your candidate. But I am the candidate that won't just run to hold the seat, but will use it to organize power across the state. The kind of power that we need to take back Tennessee from extremists, the kind of power that rebuilds a new Democratic playbook for how we win in the South. And the candidate who doesn't take money from predatory groups and corporations behind closed doors, but instead organizes people to hold on to our democracy and systems accountable to the people they are meant to serve. Each of you have been part of my story in some way, and if you haven't, I hope you will be, and I know you will. But this is what's at stake. I've had to say goodbye to 12 families that have moved out of my district and out of this state because they don't feel comfortable raising a family here. I've had to hold friends as they've sobbed because they are terrified of getting pregnant and starting a family in Tennessee. I have held back tears listening to many of you describe how our government has chosen profit over your chance to live a meaningful life. And I wouldn't be in this race if I didn't think I was the best candidate to flip this seat and maintain it. Flipping the seat is about bigger than just one of us. It's about sending a signal across the state and this country that Tennessee is worth fighting for. That our neighbors working at Dollar General, barely making rent, moms putting food on the table but can't take a bite, that we're done being sick and tired of crumbs. Our kids deserve full bellies. Our communities deserve safe roads and hospitals that aren't closed. And our communities deserve better, not someday, but right now. So we're gonna organize, we're gonna show up, we're gonna get loud, we're gonna vote like our lives depend on it, because they do. If you are not serving the people of this state, you are not welcome at our table, period. This moment demands more than politics as usual, business as usual. The old playbook got us here. We need to build a new playbook, and we have to do it together. So no more crumbs. Let's flip this table. Let's flip this seat. Who's ready to inspire our country? Whose house? Whose house? Thank you.
Darwin Copeland.
Thank you all for being here today and spending 3 hours with us, and look forward to speaking to some of you afterwards as well. We have a math problem in District 7, unfortunately. It's not our doing. We wouldn't choose it this way. The Republicans did this for us 5 years ago. But we have a math problem. We ran a popular mayor a year ago. She got 38%. We ran a community organizer 2 years before that. She got 38%. That's how this district is drawn. We can't change it today. We can't change it for this election. The candidates on stage I share the stage with, I'm not running against them. I'm running with them. I'm running against the now 18 Republicans that have pulled papers that want to run. We've got a January 6th insurrectionist. We've got a Nazi. We've got somebody who wants to shut down the Department of Education. We've got another Ogles. It's a clown car of Trump first Republicans. And if we're not careful, one of them could hold this seat. And if they win it this year, they're going to hold it for a while. That is the math. The colleagues up here that I'm sitting next to win in their districts. They win in Nashville. They win. They win in safe seats. that are drawn for the Democrats. The Republicans have said, well, we got to have some Democrats and we're going to draw this and we're going to let these folks have this, but we're going to take the rest. We have 99 members of the House. Democrats have 24. When I moved here in 2003 to run a special election in East Tennessee, we had 56 of the 99 seats, and we've lost them. We've lost them because of gerrymandering. And if we keep this up, we're going to continue to lose, and we might lose this seat. Phil Bredesen was 47 when he ran for office. He was a businessman. Some people think he might have been too moderate. I think he was pretty good. I'm 47. I'm a businessman. I've spent my life working in Democratic politics. You can't question who I am or where I came from. But as I look at this bill pass and the NPR bill and others, and the Republicans saying we want to do more of these, I can't sit idly by and let us lose another seat. I have a great life in Nashville. I love my business. I love my family. I love coaching my daughter's soccer game I just came from. But I have to step up and run for this seat. I'm not going to be a career politician. I don't want to be a creature of Washington. I don't want to be there for 20 years. I want to serve until we can put this seat back together. And then Absent can primary me and she can have the seat. I hope you'll get a chance to get to know me. I am the unknown in this race. I appreciate you guys coming out. Thank you.
Dickson.
Again, I know you've heard this all before, but thank you again for spending Saturday afternoon with us. You could be doing a lot of other things, but you are here, and I truly appreciate that. It shows that you're engaged. So that's one of the things that we've talked about since we've been here, engagement. And we need people like you to get engaged in our communities, in our political landscape, because without you, the people, we have no power. We have to get the power from you so that we can go fight for you. And I'm here to fight for you. I've been this is my 4th term, which is going into my 8th year as a state legislator. And I have consistently fought for my community to make sure that they have a voice. And that's what we need, is a voice. And right now we have too many people that have just given up on voting. They've given up. But this special election serves as an opportunity to show that Tennessee matters. And we are not giving up on Tennessee. We're not just going to let them have this. We're going to fight back. That's why it's very important that you go vote early on September the 17th. Can you say that for me? What day? September 17th. And take 3 people with you. Take 3 people with you. So please make sure you go do that. And we can flip this seat, but we can't do it by ourselves. It's going to take a coalition that we have not seen before. And we're all going to have to work together in order to make this happen. Any one of us could win the primary, preferably me, but any of us can do that. But the point is, we have to work together to get people out and get away from the voter apathy. People truly feel like their vote doesn't matter anymore. And we're here to show you and to tell you, if you can't see on the news that your vote doesn't matter, I don't know what else to do to wake you up. But it is our duty to make sure that our neighbors, our friends, our family get out and vote. Please make sure that you have a plan to vote. And please do not wait till election day unless you have to. But please get out there to vote. I would love to have your support. And I'd love for you to get behind my campaign, because I think we can do something special here. We can flip this seat, and we may not get this opportunity for a long time, but it's here. And if we flip District 7, and guess what's next? District 5. Let's go, y'all. Thank you.
Hello, Mitchell.
Yeah, thank you. Thank y'all again for enduring us for this long. But first and foremost, I want to thank my wife Chastity of 26 years, for coming out and putting up with all of this as well. You know, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a former Metro councilman, now I'm a state representative. I think all of us in this room have had enough. But now it's time we got to channel our frustration, our fear, and disappointment into action. As Vincent said, on September 17th, we need you to go vote early, But after that, you got to get to work. Your vote's in the bank then. That's when you got to go get your friends, neighbors, people you can knock and drag to the polls. It's just going to take every known Democrat that we can get to the polls to win. We've got the enthusiasm on our side, but they've got the numbers. So we've got to be more enthusiastic. In my safe district, I keep hearing about my safe house district. We have to get over 90% of the known Democrats to the polls, and we do that in early voting. I've done that cycle after cycle. I've been the number one target for the Republicans. I was that for 3 cycles in a row. If we didn't get those voters out in early voting, I knew I was going to lose in my safe district because it was a Republican district by 10 percentage points until recently. So we've got to work early and often. As they say, early to bed, early to rise, work like hell and organize. And that's what we got to do. Thank y'all so much.
All right, let's hear it again for all the candidates. Let's have a round for the organizers of this event. Let's have a round for everybody who came here tonight and those who were watching online. Let's keep these conversations going. Let's stay engaged. Most importantly, vote. And if anybody is interested in an immediate volunteer opportunity, we'd love your help putting chairs up tonight. Thank you for coming out.
And our moderator.
Oh, yeah.
Have a great night.
Where the chairs go?
Jenny, where do the chairs go?